Hello, everyone. I am back. As I said, I wouldn't be. So, looks like I'm going to do something weekly. So, if you want, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. I don't know what I'm going to bring to this channel except my honesty. So, I have been on Twitter for the past 24 hours straight. I didn't sleep. No, just kidding. I did sleep. I slept right there. It was a poor quality of sleep, I might add. And Chelsea just won yesterday 3-0 against AC Milan. Huge victory for them. Started off very poorly in the Champions League. Needed a bounce back match after their kind of horrific performance against Dynamo Zagreb. Thomas Tuchel's one of his last matches, maybe his last match. And what we saw was a Chelsea team that came out and played pretty well. AC Milan played poorly. But Chelsea managed to win 3-0, which is a pretty resounding victory. When you jumped onto Twitter, you would have thought that not only had Chelsea lost, but they played really poorly. And many people seemed to be throwing out there that Christian Pulisic should have featured in this match, and he should have featured prominently. Amongst the USMNT Twitter fan base, it seems there was a lot of vitriol and venom over the decision to leave Christian Pulisic on the bench against this team. I'm going to give 3 reasons why this is a really silly response from US men's soccer Twitter. And I'm going to give out some disclaimers before that. I am not a particularly active tweeter. I follow Twitter. But I think that we need to take a deep breath as a fan base here and relax. Relax. Number 1, Christian Pulisic is an all-out attacking winger who can play in the center of the park in very advanced positions off a target striker. Absolutely, he can do that. When you're up 3-0, I don't know. I think, did this match really call out for Christian Pulisic? I don't think so. One thing I think we really need to think about here is Chelsea is playing 3 matches in 6 days. They played on Sunday in the Premier League. They played on Wednesday against AC Milan, and they're playing on Saturday, the second game against Wolves. That's going to be a tough and physical game. Wolves just sacked their manager. And if you're Graham Potter, you have one of the deepest benches in the Premier League, one of the deepest benches in the world. I think one of the things that was pretty obvious between AC Milan and Chelsea was that Chelsea has a deeper bench. They have a deeper side. You have to manage that squad, and you have to manage them responsibly. You've just played Mason Mount on Sunday. You've played him again on Wednesday. I think it's pretty doubtful that Mason Mount gets a start on Saturday against Wolves. I think it's pretty doubtful that same starting lineup features again against Wolves. So you have to have players that are fresh if you're going to play 3 matches in 6 days. So I think if Chelsea hadn't had a game on Saturday coming up and Pulisic didn't come on, I think, yeah, as a USMNT fan, you're probably a little bit concerned, right? But knowing that you have a match, like another match in 3 days from the match you've just had after you had a match on Sunday. So every 3 days, they're playing a full competitive match against good teams who can be physical. AC Milan can be a physical team. Wolves is absolutely going to be a physical contest. Then you need to have players that are fit and ready to go in these matches. That's why you need squad depth. I think it's too late to jump on Twitter and say a Twitter account from a guy I really respect jumped on there and said, hey, same shit, different manager. The reality is, Pulisic's only had a couple matches to make an impression on Graham Potter. And I think as a fan base, we're too reactionary. Pulisic came on for the final 5 minutes against, his last Premier League match and produced an assist. But the way USMNT Twitter responded to that assist made it seem like, hey, he must have done something really fantastic. He made a driving run at some players and passed it to Conor Gallagher, who had a great first touch and a worldly finish. That's not really something that we should spend the next 48 hours tweeting about, right? Soccer by West says, didn't get to watch the game yesterday, but I'm sure Mount played like he always does and just ran around and really did nothing. So that's not true. Mason Mount, actually, I think he had a very good match. He was impactful. He had a couple of chances he should have finished. One in particular, a shot from just outside the 18 that I thought he should have scored on. Mason Mount gives you things that Christian Pulisic doesn't. Yes, they play the same position. They line up in the same area in the park, although Pulisic plays on the left. Mount tends to play on the right. But Mount is much more of a box-to-box player than Pulisic is. I'm not saying that Mason Mount is at his best a box-to-box midfielder. I'm just saying that Mason Mount is a more physical player. Yes, he runs a lot. He does more than just give you cardio. He's better at man marking. He's better at winning tackles. And he also does arrive late in the box and score goals for you. Now, do I think that he's a better attacking option than Christian Pulisic? No, I don't. I think Pulisic is, in terms of what I want to see, in terms of the teams I watch or what I want to play, I want to see good attacking wingers who are great in tight spaces, who have pace, not necessarily just all-out sprint pace, but quick bursts of pace to get past players and play a ball in or get into the box. Yeah, and Pulisic does this better than Mason Mount. I think that's a fact, right? I think everyone knows that. But if you're Graham Potter and you're saying, okay, I've just managed, my first couple of matches, it's been touch and go. I'm still getting to know the player pool. I have to win this match against AC Milan. Have to. It was a must win. Pulisic's been a guy on the periphery. He gave me 5 good minutes, but I think I know what I'm going to get with these guys. I'm going to go with them. We win that match. And then you're going to go into the Wolves game and probably play a guy like Pulisic, right? So I think to jump on Twitter and bag Mason Mount, right? Which is, Wes, I'm not saying you're doing this, but USMNT Twitter tend to go after Mason Mount like he stole something from them. And I think that what they think is that he's stealing minutes from Christian Pulisic. It's not a like for like swap, guys. It's not. In fact, I look at the players out on the pitch. I think Mason Mount gives you more than Kai Havertz gives you. Kai Havertz is not a little bit. He's better on the ball. He's classier on the ball. He's silkier. But I don't think if I'm the manager and I'm looking to build my best 11, I'm going to look at Aubameyang. I'm going to look at Raheem Sterling. I'm going to look at Kovacic. I'm going to look at Conte when he's fit. Jorginho deep in the hole. Ruben Loftus-Cheek for me is a little bit of a funny one, but Graham Potter seems to like him. And then the back four is kind of a wash or a 3 and 2 wing backs. On that left side, there aren't a lot of opportunities for Pulisic to play, unless you withdraw Kai Havertz and play Christian Pulisic in his place. And that's what I would do personally. But we have to understand that this Chelsea team is a very, very deep squad. Christian Pulisic is a very, very good player. When he has played well, in the short stints that he has played well over sustained periods of time, he has given us some world-class football. I think that has tricked USMNT fans into believing that Pulisic is a world-class footballer. A world-class footballer is somebody that plays at that level more times than they don't. It's somebody that makes themselves undroppable. Raheem Sterling is a world-class footballer. Year after year after year. He's had years where he's knocked in 20-plus goals. I always count on Raheem Sterling to give you 14-plus goals in a season, at bare minimum, right? That's somebody who's, what you're going to get with him. Now, Mason Mount may not take on players the way Christian Pulisic does. He may not have that breakaway pace. He may not have those quick movements or the quick turn, but Mason Mount is going to give you things that Pulisic doesn't, particularly defensively, right? He's going to give you more work rate, although I don't think Pulisic is lazy. He's going to get stuck into a tackle more. So just this like for like, let's compare stats. Mason Mount has 0 goals and 0 assists, and that's right. His production hasn't been great, right? But I think when you're Potter and you look at, all right, if I've got 2 players where I don't necessarily know where their form is at, maybe it's good, maybe it's off. I think it's a worthy argument to say that Mason Mount has been out of form. I think that he likes what Mason Mount gives him on the other end of the pitch enough to let him play through things. Christian Pulisic, if he's not playing well, that means he's just not generating offensive chances, because Pulisic isn't counted on and isn't expected to give you anything in the defensive third of the field or the defensive half of the pitch. The reality is that Pulisic is not a one-trick pony, but for Chelsea, he kind of is, right? Unless he's driving at players, unless he's disrupting defenders, unless he's absorbing contact and getting fouls in critical areas, or getting into the box and generating chances or finishing chances, he's not doing a lot for you, right? So I think with Graham Potter, his first couple of matches, he doesn't want to leak in goals, and they have conceded some goals in silly ways. So I think what he's thinking is, all right, until I really know what I have with this player pool, it's a deep player pool. We have 3 matches in 6 days. I'm going to go with these known quantities that I really, really know, and I feel like I can trust the performance I'm going to get on both ends of the park. And then I think we really need to look to the Wolves match. For me, the Wolves match is going to tell you where Christian Pulisic is and how it's going to go from now until the January transfer window. If Pulisic doesn't get a start on Saturday, then I think he's not going to get starts for Graham Potter. If he doesn't get significant time off the bench, then I don't think he's going to be a significant time player for Graham Potter. But I think it's too early for us to be making any sort of inquest judgments on Graham Potter and his management of Pulisic. And you can't blame Chelsea Twitter for getting their backs up every time USMNT fans come in and start attacking Mason Mount, because many of us are doing so. I'm saying us because I'm a fan of US soccer, are doing so not from a place of wanting to see Chelsea win or the team succeed, but just to wanting to see our guy get on the pitch. And most fans of any club are not going to have much time for that, right? And I understand that. If they're fans of the club, then they're probably not going to be super receptive for people that just want to see one guy play. And unfortunately, I think a lot of fans of Hakim Ziyech want to see him play. These are Moroccan fans that really want to see their guy do well, and US fans fit into that category as well. And there are more of them, I think, than Moroccan fans. So, guys, I think we got to chill out. Really, far be it for me to tell anyone how to do Twitter because I don't really do it. But observing, I mean, it's a 3-0 victory. Chelsea have won 3-0. And for most US fans who are out there tweeting and following Chelsea are bickering about Pulisic versus Mason Mount after a 3-0 victory, you're really not striking the right chord. You know, what you should be saying, in my opinion, is that great win by Chelsea. Players played pretty well. If Pulisic doesn't get on against Wolves, he's probably going to need to leave, and the writing's probably on the wall. But to be upset that he didn't come on in a 3-0 victory against AC Milan is silly. It's pissing into the wind. It makes us look dumb, in my opinion. It makes us look ridiculous because we're sitting here criticizing the manager and criticizing the other players on the pitch on a match they've just won 3-0 against the champions of Serie A. Silly. Wes says, that's a fair point. I put my money that he's not going to start. Super happy you're doing another video. Well, thank you, Wes. I hope he does start. I have about 50% confidence that Pulisic will start this match against Wolves. Because, again, it's not necessarily because I think Graham Potter's like, oh, yeah, great. I think it's because Wolves are a club in turmoil. They just sacked their manager. They can't score goals, right? They don't score. Chelsea have just played 2 matches in just over 3 days, right? So they played on Wednesday. They played on Sunday. That's too much to run those same players out there again. So I think that he's going to look at this as an opportunity to test some of these untested guys or players that he really wants to see about against teams that are against a team in Wolves that isn't expected to compete with Chelsea. Now, it's not that it's never a challenge. The Premier League always is, but I think that's a fair tack to take if you're Graham Potter, right? Roll out the guys that you have a little bit more confidence in. There hasn't been any controversy around that aren't on the fringes of the squad. And then on Saturday, when you play Wolves, maybe let a couple new guys in the squad to see what they can do. And I think that's what he's going to do. But I don't think it helps the player. And I know nothing about Christian Pulisic or how he engages with social media or whatever. But every single Chelsea match, if you jump on Twitter, you're going to see USMNT fans screaming for Pulisic to get time and running out stats about the failures of every Chelsea player who's playing in his place. And then you're going to see the same vitriol come back at them from Chelsea fans who are really annoyed that the only things that USMNT fans who claim to follow Chelsea Football Club have to say is anger and discontent about Christian Pulisic getting or not getting in the game. And I just think it's a silly argument to keep having. I think it's a silly stake to lay into the soil. And the reality is, the buzz on Twitter creates news. You have guys like Thierry Henry getting out there and saying, Pulisic, you have to do something different and free yourself and all this kind of stuff. And that puts pressure on the player that he doesn't really need. And I think it's becoming because every time you turn around, trending on Twitter is Christian Pulisic in a 3-0 AC Milan victory because he didn't see the pitch. It's hard to criticize Graham Potter's decisions in a 3-0 victory against AC Milan. I think it's easier to criticize when the team isn't generating chances, like the earlier matches where Graham Potter was in charge. It's still early for him, but the first match or two, USMNT Twitter has jumped on there and said, Pulisic did more in 5 minutes than Mount did in almost 90. And guys, that's just not true. Like, yes, in terms of like driving at defenders from the wing, Pulisic is always going to do more than Mason Mount does. That's what Pulisic does. That's not a feature of Mason Mount's game. But like, I could look at Mason Mount and his industrious work in the midfield and the way he closes down and makes tackles, and releases the team quickly and gets forward. And I can say, well, Pulisic doesn't do that. You know what I mean? You see how silly and petty this game could be? Like, you start harping on every touch a player takes, and that turns into a GIF on Twitter to show you how shit a player is. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, I wouldn't want that level of scrutiny on any U.S. men's national team player. And I'm sure that Chelsea fans don't want it on all of their players either. Now, again, objectively, do I think that Christian Pulisic is a better option in the attacking three than Kai Havertz? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I think if you play Pulisic on the opposite side of Raheem Sterling, any defense, I don't care who they are, is going to have issues. Any defense. They're both too fast, too quick. Their decision-making when it's fast and snappy and they don't just linger on the ball is elite. Obviously, Raheem Sterling, I think, is a better player than Christian Pulisic. He's certainly demonstrated it for longer. So I'm not trying to compare them as equals. I'm simply saying that if you're looking at an attacking trident of Aubameyang and Sterling and Pulisic, I'm afraid as a defender, especially if you've got a Kovacic who can play the ball forward into those players. If you've got Conte playing Chelsea or a different team, unfortunately he's not, and they have to make with what they've got, and they still have a really elite side. But I mean, guys, yeah, like for like swap. I think Kai Havertz goes out, Pulisic goes in. But to constantly be comparing his statistics with Mason Mount, I think is a fool's errand. I don't think it's an effective argument. I don't think it's a worthwhile way to spend our time as a collective fan base. Again, do what you want, right? I mean, that's the cool thing is you can say whatever you want on social media, but know that I think that doesn't help Pulisic. It turns like, because he was trending, CBS Sports Desk, they were, or the team, the Paramount Plus team covering the Champions League, Kate Abdo, Micah Richards, Jamie Carragher, and Thierry Henry were talking about it. And, Thierry Henry continues to blast Christian Pulisic because they're kind of forced to talk about him because he's trending on Twitter. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, who the hell wants to talk about a guy not getting off the bench? I wouldn't. And I think that we need to swallow a potential hard pill. There could be a scenario, and I think it's probably a 50-50 scenario, where Christian Pulisic is not a part of Graham Potter's plans. Not because he's not good. There's not a single player in that Chelsea side that's not a good player. I would say they're all very good players. It's one of the deepest teams in the world. You're talking about one of the 10 best teams in the world in terms of players assembled, right? I think it's very hard to argue otherwise. Not everybody can win in a side like that. That's why, when guys like Craig Burley are saying maybe he's not good enough for Chelsea, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have the skill to play for Chelsea or to be scouted by Chelsea. It simply means that if you're going to be strictly a attacking player who thrives on the wing, and that is Pulisic, right? Pulisic is not a box-to-box midfielder. He's not somebody who's going to get stuck into the tackle. He'll press, he's active. He's not a lazy player. But he doesn't give you a lot of attributes outside of what he contributes offensively, right? Yeah, he'll try hard and all that kind of stuff. But you want Christian Pulisic in for his class on the ball in tight spaces, his unpredictable movement, his quick turning, and his quick bursts of speed to create space between him and defenders, both when he's running off the ball and both when he has the ball, right? Or when he's receiving it. That's a different player profile from a guy like Mason Mount. So if you're the manager and you're trying to line up a certain way and you want to be difficult to play against as well as hard to contain when you're on the ball, I can see why you go with a guy like Mason Mount. I don't see why you go with a guy like Kai Havertz, but that's his choice. Havertz drives me crazy when he's playing. He misses chances, acts like he got shot every time, like someone's touched him. Wes, the only thing I would say about that is Pulisic goes down pretty easy as well. And this isn't a criticism of the player. It's just that, like when tackles come in, the quality of refereeing, I think in the Premier League does not match up with the quality on the pitch. I think that of all the leagues in Europe, and I know, England is technically not a part of Europe anymore. Great Britain isn't, but we're just going to go ahead and say they are. I think for footballing purposes, they are. They're still a part of UEFA. Pulisic goes down pretty easy too. So I'm not going to criticize Kai Havertz for going down because Pulisic does as well. I think neither of them are physically stout players. I think that, there are trade-offs. Pulisic gives you more quickness and breakaway speed. Havertz gives you an option in the air in the box, but Pulisic doesn't really. I mean, I know Pulisic has finished goals with his head, and Kai Havertz isn't exactly a prolific scorer, but it's really as a manager, who do you want on the pitch and how do you want to play? I think that's what it comes down to. Central issue I see. This is from Marin Blissum. A central issue I see is USMNT fans constantly critiquing the other players at Chelsea. Yeah, player FC, 100%. It's gotten so bad where some YouTubers I really like Connor, One Leeds fan channel. Please go to subscribe to that channel. That guy is awesome. Also, Just Joe Football, really big fan of his as well. But Connor gives some really detailed analysis. And one of the extrapolations that he's had just based on what he's seen on Twitter and on the internet is that US fans don't like teams. They just follow players. That's not true. That's not true. I don't know very many US soccer fans that don't have a club that they attach to or that they care about, that they want to see win. I mean, there aren't a lot of folks in Portland who follow Pulisic and cheer for Pulisic that don't also like the Portland Timbers. You know what I mean? So now there's this perception that, well, American fans don't even care about clubs or teams at all. They just follow players because of the actions of our fan base on the internet. We do this to ourselves. And it's not true. I think this isn't a very coherent rant, guys. I got to be honest. I'm trying to verbalize that I think we need to be, we don't need to defend Christian Pulisic on Twitter all the time. We don't. I think that's my central thesis here. Pulisic is a very, very good footballer who, if given a chance in a team, as I think has been demonstrated before injuries kind of derailed that, under Frank Lampard, when Lampard started to trust him a little bit, he gave him a run in the team, then he produced, right? However, Lampard's team was not as deep as the team that Thomas Tuchel built and now the team that Graham Potter has. It wasn't. Before, Pulisic was beating out guys like Callum Hudson-Odoi. And I know there are like some random fans in the Chelsea fan base that rate Callum Hudson-Odoi, he's the second coming of Christ. Those fans are few and far between. The educated opinions, in my opinion, and the opinions about the player pool at Chelsea rate based off production. And yes, this season, Mason Mount has started out slow. Again, it's not a like-for-like comparison. He plays differently. He does different things. He's asked to do different things on the pitch. But statistically, it's not been good. Yesterday, I think you would argue, if you watched the match, that Mason Mount was very lively. And I don't just mean in terms of cardio. I think he put in some good defensive work, and he was a threat. He was absolutely a threat. And I know, the what ifs, but like an offsides goal was actually a brilliant finish. Finished brilliantly. But I think that there's this idea that we got to defend our guy. And I think a lot of this has to do with the upcoming World Cup match against England. Do you really want to do that? Do we really want to get into this? Let's really go after England? Because guys, if you've been watching the U.S. men's national team lately, I wouldn't be so confident. Soccer by West says, and sorry, I can't highlight these comments, or at least I don't know how to. I'll figure that out later, so I'll just read them out. Havertz to me makes a meal of every single time, and that's just my thing. Not trying to compare him to CP, just saying what I think. Yeah, I can't argue with you there, Wes. I can't say it doesn't stick out to me, but I haven't been looking for it either. So maybe if I went back and watched it, I would see it. But I think we really need to think about, as a collective fan base, whether we're doing more harm than good by jumping onto the Chelsea threads and the Chelsea trending during a match and spending the entire match hyper analyzing every single touch by every player we think shouldn't be playing against our in front of our guy. Because that means, and I've seen it happen, when Pulisic gets on the pitch, everything he does is going to be scrutinized as a way of clapping back at us. We are creating a war that doesn't need to exist. Yeah, there are some haters that blame Christian Pulisic for everything. And like that's where those memes come from, it doesn't get on. Like if AC Milan had won yesterday, there would have been somebody talking about how shit players like Pulisic need to get out of the club. Absolutely. I've seen that. But I think most Chelsea fans, if Pulisic goes on and does well, they'll be delighted. They'll be delighted. We, jump on Twitter, and if Chelsea's winning 3-0, we're pissed off. Guys, come on. Silly. Man, I got an argument with Chelsea fans on Twitter, and they're trying to tell me that this team is way worse than the team that won the Champions League. I mean, since they've spent they spent 200 million on players. The biggest differences I see are at the back, right? Antonio Rudiger is a world-class center half. Playing him with Thiago Silva, I think, in recent memory, maybe Liverpool's best season over the past 4 or 5 years, you could say that their center half tandem at one time was better, but I don't think anyone would be making that argument right now based on current form. Antonio Rudiger playing with Thiago Silva, for me, was one of the best tandems. It reminded me of Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic in their prime. I mean, just absolute class at the back. Rudiger is a madman, amazing in the tackle, and gets forward really well too. Has great pace, great physicality. Thiago Silva showed yesterday, absolute class. So I think that's the only position where in which Chelsea was better then than they are now. It's relatively the same group of players. You got Mason Mount. In fact, I'd say you're better up front, right? I mean, Aubameyang, I think, has who was starting at the 9. Kai Havertz was playing as a false 9 when Chelsea won the Champions League, right? So I think that anybody would say that you'd rather have Aubameyang playing at the 9 than Chelsea. Yeah, Chelsea will continue to buy players. Todd Bowley will continue to look. If I'm Christian Pulisic, I'm leaving in January no matter what. If he starts at Wolves, or not at Wolves, but against Wolves, could be an away match. I don't know. And scores 3 goals, I would still say Pulisic should angle for an exit in January, right? Because I just think Christian Pulisic needs to be playing when he's fit, week in and week out. Most players, if you're going to play at a club like Chelsea, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Man City, if you want to play every week and not get rotated, you have to be a world-class player. And that means you have to play at a world-class level more often than you don't. And Pulisic isn't that guy. There aren't a lot of Chelsea guys. Chelsea has a lot of really good to potentially great players, but they don't have a lot of world-class players on that team right now. They lost one in Antonio Rudiger. Conte is a world-class player, but he's never fit. I think Sterling has gone from being a world-class player to a just truly elite, great player, but I don't think he's world-class anymore, but he's at that level and has been at that level. Aubameyang, it's debatable. Thiago Silva, I think, is a world-class. Here's a comment about Thiago Silva here from JB. I'm honestly shocked by Silva. He's almost 40 and on that level. I don't know what it says about Chelsea or Brazil. It's amazing. I think that he's just phenomenal. Yeah. David Silva didn't look that good from Brazil as he aged, and Thiago Silva is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. I keep waiting for the wheels to fall off, and I think they probably will. Also, do you remember when he first got to Chelsea? He made like a really bad back pass, and everyone was like, "Oh shit!" So this is a fickle, weird internet fan base, which is why I just don't think we should continue to debate this way and attack their players because we want to see Pulisic on the pitch. Kind of silly. All these big clubs continue to buy players until they buy a diamond. Yeah. So look, Eden Hazard rides the bench at Real Madrid. And like most of that has been fitness, I think, self-imposed. But if you're going to play for a top 10 club in the world, and I mean Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Real Madrid, Barcelona, um, I wouldn't even put AC Milan in that category. Would you? I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, God, I hate saying Manchester United, but they are a big club. Anyway, I'm not going to get caught up in the weeds here. But if you want to play for one of those truly like top 5% in the world, you have to be world class to like Kevin De Bruyne is undroppable. Erling Haaland is undroppable. What a freak, by the way. I've never seen anything like that guy. Messi's undroppable. Neymar's undroppable. Mbappe's undroppable. Everybody else is kind of rotatable, right? You've got super deep teams. They're rotatable. John Stones, rotation guy. Let me see. What are other great examples of this? Casemiro, rotation guy. Let me see. God, Phil Foden's undroppable, I think. There's so few players on elite, like Mo Salah, undroppable. Sadio Mane, when he played for Liverpool, undroppable. Right now he plays for Bayern Munich. I don't think you can drop him, but his form hasn't been as good. I mean, there are so few players that you can say belong in a team of that level every single week without fail. And I think that USMNT fans were fooled by that period of time where Christian got in the Chelsea side and was undroppable for a while. They were on a transfer ban, and he caught fire at the right time. I think he could duplicate that form again. I don't think it's going to ever happen. I think he needs to be a guy for his confidence. He needs to play every single week. I don't think it's going to be at Chelsea. But I want to put a punctuation mark on the stream here because we're over half an hour. This is just meant to be a short stream. I'm going to try to do 2 kind of weekly videos. I think one's going to be like topical like this. And then there's going to be the larger US soccer ecosystem. I have a video coming up. It's not a live stream. It's a prepared video about the Yates report for US women's soccer. And it is and the failures of the USSF and the the NWSL. Horrific. It's probably going to be like an hour long. But all this to say, I want to recap by saying this one thing. I acted like I was going to have 3 points. I forgot what they were even going to be. But guys, let's just reiterate. If you're jumping on to Twitter or a live stream or whatever, while the Chelsea match is on and they're up 3-0 and the guy you like or want to see play isn't in the match and all you're doing is complaining about that and tearing down the other players, you may want to think your priorities. You may want to rethink your priorities. Makes us look. I'm tongue-tied. I think I'm done.